They were featuring Gregg Spiridellis from HiHo. Welcome, Gregg.
Nice to be here. Thanks, guys.
Is that a story bot I see behind you?
That is a story behind me.
Wow, good eye.
That is a birthday present from my brother, who is my co-founder of JibJab and Storybots. And I play the character Boop on the Storybots.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I played Boop. And that's primarily because all he says is Boop. And that's about the extent of my performance and acting ability. So.
I was going to say, I didn't know you were an actor as well. Very multifaceted.
I'm not an actor. I write, I've produced. I am not an actor or an artist. That's my brother is far more talented on that front than I am.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So Storybots is, I think I'm not as familiar. It's a Netflix series, is it?
Yeah, like 1 minute history.
Yeah.
I started JibJab with my brother back in 1999. It was one of the first original content businesses on the web, and built that business over 20 years. Had done things like political satire and Elf Yourself. And
I remember Elf Yourself. Yeah, my nephews loved Elf Yourself.
Yeah, so we built that into like a pretty sizable subscription business. We had over almost 2 million paid subscribers. The business was throwing off a lot of cash. And my brother and I were new dads with young kids, and we were looking at television going, my God, there's like nothing remotely interesting or good happening in television, because pre-Netflix, Disney and Nickelodeon basically had a monopoly on television programming for kids, and just it was like all crap. So we said, let's make a show. So we started producing YouTube shorts, and then from there, we started producing our first season of television. We licensed that first season to Netflix, produced 3 seasons of a show called Ask the Storybots. It won 7 Emmys. I think it was nominated for 22. Have celebrity guests like Snoop Dogg, Jennifer Garner,
That's awesome.
John Legend. Big celebrity guests. And in 2019, about 2 years ago, almost to the day 2 years ago, Netflix bought the company, and now we're producing a new show. They're making it their global Sesame Street, which was always our vision.
Oh, wow.
Our vision was, let's create a really cool global Sesame Street. And now it's in 35 languages, 190 countries.
Wow.
And fulfilled that kind of vision, and it was amazing. Amazing. Yeah, it's really fun, satisfying project, and it's if you've never seen the show, our goal is to teach kids like a 5-year-old something that they could repeat to a parent that would like blow the parents. How many ears here? Why is the sky blue? And that's what we do. So it's fun.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I saw someone tweeting about the "How do ears hear" thing. That was really cool.
Yeah, really funny. I had someone tell me, they were playing a trivia game on Alexa with their spouse, and it asked for one of the trivia questions was, name the 3 bones, of the middle ear. And their 5-year-olds walked in and listed all thanks.
That's amazing.
That's great. Wow. So I want to hear, actually, you mentioned late 90s, you and your brother are starting JibJab, right?
Yeah.
What was the vision or idea or starting point? How did you get that off the ground? Because late 90s, the internet was still pretty new to a lot of people.
It was virtually insane.
There was no Amazon really, right? So just take us back. What does that feel like? What were you guys doing?
Well, I'll tell you. So I was, in a prior life, I was an investment banker for 4 years after my finance undergrad. I went to Wharton. I did my MBA. I thought I was going to be, a Wall Street person. And my brother was at art school. And during business school, I was first exposed to the Flash animation on the web, which was vector animation, which enabled creators to produce really low bandwidth content and distribute it globally. And so my brother wanted to do a television show, and I, as he always says, I told him, look, you're banging out horseshoes. The Model T's coming off the line here. Start thinking about the internet. And before I knew it, I was we were collaborating during my second year of business school. And so when I graduated, we said, let's go after this. The internet was clearly going to be an important medium for entertainment. let's like go hang a shingle and see if we can figure out what kinds of formats will work in this new world. And, we started JibJab in October 1999. We started producing content. I think we launched the site in November 99. And, then we had almost a 20-year run before we sold it. So it was a wild run. We've
wow.
Surviving as an original content producer on the internet, it's like, we've been called the cockroaches of the internet. We just kept inventing ourselves until we had, actually built something.
Was there an early breakout piece of content that really worked for you that you kind of, was it like the first thing you tried or the 10th thing you tried?
Oh,
or how did that look?
No. I will say, so we started in 99 when nobody was on the internet. I mean, unless you were like a geek, like unless you were a hobbyist, like very few consumers were on the internet. And so we just started iterating content formats. And over the years, we learned that like comedy, it was all based on comedy. Music worked. Topical issues people responded to, and then also this collage animation style that we came up with. We didn't come up with, Terry Gilliam. I mean, it had been done before, but we brought to the internet. And in 2004, we were like on the cusp of giving up. It was almost 5 years into starting the business. We're like, I guess we were wrong. I guess this internet thing never will be used for entertainment. And we're like, okay, let's produce like one more political satire, because we had kind of built these political reputation, kind of like a small subculture of people who loved what we were doing on political satire. And then we produced this video. It was This Land, George Bush and John Kerry singing "This Land Is Your Land," and the thing went bananas. It was YouTube existed. We had we literally were smoking shared servers, servers blowing up. It was probably one of the first produced viral videos on the internet, and we ran that. Basically overnight we were on the couch with the Jay Leno Tonight Show, the Today Show.
Right.
This was the kind of the highlight of the insanity. Was in 2004. Peter Jennings from ABC News named me and my brother People of the Year for ABC in 2004. Oh, wow. And I always say in 2003 it was Larry and Sergey. So we still have a year to catch up to them. We still have a year to catch up. I'm working on it. And HiHo may do it.
Wow.
So you were, I don't think, I just shared the YouTube link to the This Land Is Your Land thing. But you were doing this before YouTube was around. So were you building all your own infrastructure to support video streaming? You've got your own data center. There's no AWS, right?
AWS. Kids today have TikTok.
Yeah,
we were rolling our own. We were trying to figure out, how do you serve a global audience content? And so we were doing everything from the pipes to the front end product to the content.
Wow.
We were truly vertically integrated because no services existed at the time. And so I'll never forget, we served 80 million views of This Land and another election follow-up.
Wow.
That we did. And we did it by basically mirroring. People loved the content. They would volunteer, hey, I've got some bandwidth, I can mirror your site. So basically JibJab.com just became a redirect to all the servers that were willing to mirror our content. And so we were managing this network of sites that were delivering content. It was bananas. It was probably the most exciting and terrifying 6 months of my career. And my brother and I, and it wasn't just us, my brother's wife wrote the music. She's an incredible musician. And my best friend from third grade was our web developer. Yeah. He was trying to keep the wheels on the bus. So it was the four of us kind of trying to make this thing happen.
When you had produced it, but before you launched it, did you just know it? You're like, this is a banger? Or were you like, we've been trying stuff for years, we'll see?
That's a great question. Typically, the production cycle for these short videos was about 8 weeks. And so you're living with this thing a long time. Mm-hmm. And the typical experience is you laugh a lot at the beginning, and then by the end, you're like, I just want to ship this thing. It's like building digital products. It's by the end, you just ship it. Right. But this one was, we're this is funny. Like we're still laughing 8 weeks into this, busting it up with gags, and then also Jim Meskimen, who did all of our voices, like all the impersonations, just brought another layer. So it was just like people. It's like anything you're building. When you build something special, it's like everyone brings this layer on top of it. And by the time we had like stacked up all of this talent, my sister-in-law and my friend and our voice guy, it was like, okay, this thing is special. Now we had no idea, like no video that I'm aware of had ever achieved that kind of like velocity and breakout success globally. But so to say I didn't expect the results at all, but we knew it was kind of something that felt really, really special.
Yeah. Right. And then if you were back, like if you were someone leaving their investment banking job today and saying, I want to create content on the internet, because a lot of parts of your approach seem pretty similar, like the ideation, the iteration. Obviously tools are so different and the whole ecosystem is so different. So how might you approach it if you were starting this like now?
That's a really great question. It's crowded now. I think part of, if I look back on the 20 years that we produced content and we were successful, the one thing that we've done really, really well is predict technology shifts, distribution shifts, and then build content and product experiences to take advantage of those shifts. And so what I mean was the initial shift was the web, right? We were doing things like under the content, sign up for our newsletter, share buttons. Like we were doing viral literally before it was called viral. We didn't know. It was like, okay, we got to drive our own distribution. And so that was, I would say, email. Email was like that first distribution channel, and we catered the content and the product experiences around the distribution. Facebook, we were one of the first to build on Facebook platform on their social graph, and we were doing at the time starring you, which is put your face in videos, and also birthday and seasonal content. So gosh, we can get your friends, their birthdays, their photos. I mean, it was the magic. We knew it was magic sauce. And we approach content from a distribution centric point of view. And so that was, I think, like the second wave of distribution shaping content. The third was messaging. So like when we built JibJab Messenger, which was like really lightweight, fun content for messengers, and we were center stage at WWDC when they opened up iMessage as a platform with apps like they use JibJab. Mm-hmm. And then Storybots. Storybots was a bet. I mean, Storybots, we said there are a lot of people watching kids content on YouTube. We can build the content there, and then once we're comfortable that it's working, let's go make a big bet. Because this was 2012 and Netflix was not producing original content then, but the bet was that all of the SVODs were going to need original content. And so we made a bet based on a change in distribution, and it paid off. We saw around the corner on distribution, we produced content for it, and there we were. So, what I would say is if you're going to get into content today, make a bold bet on shifts in distribution and get out ahead of it. Because if you're just another person producing YouTube videos, if you're just another person creating TikTok videos, you can build a very successful career as an independent creator, but really tough to build a business, I would say.
Yeah. Are there any distribution shifts that you see coming? And I mean, does that play into what you're building now?
Right now, what we're trying to build is actually a new kind of format that is its own platform. Like the thing about JibJab, the thing about Storybots, like it was always content that relied on other emerging distribution platforms. And the opportunity that myself and my co-founder, Mike Bracco and Gustavo Bersina saw was the opportunity to say, wow, we can create tools in a conversational format that could actually be big enough to warrant a platform of its own. And so that was that's the difference in what we're doing here than, what we did with JibJab and Storybots.
Right. I noticed a question from the audience here for no particular reason. Who are your favorite investors? I think she's trolling us, but Katie.
Well, my favorite investor is Moxie Ventures, Katie Stanton.
Yeah,
who's also my partner beyond our business. So, but I'm blessed with great investors. Obviously, Katie, but also my lead was Resolute VC, Mike Hirschland, who was at Polaris, and Polaris backed JibJab. So John Flint and Mike Hirschland from Polaris, we had a 12 plus year history, and we built great relationships. And it's so important to pick the right venture partners. Like these, and I lucked out with Polaris, and now with Mike Hirschland and his firm Resolute, and Katie.
Well, here's Katie. I just invited her up in case she wants to tell us about using HiHo or Jam on anything.
Hi everyone. This is kind of meta.
Live.
No, this is super fun. Thanks for inviting me on, and thanks for bringing this community together. It's so fun to see like all my founders collaborating and sharing stories and building products and community. Yeah,
I would love to hear the backstory of like when you met Gregg, your impressions of him as an entrepreneur, or like anything. Even like the HiHo story, kind of like how that, I don't know, your impressions of how that, when that was starting and like using it and seeing the early community.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really struck me is that, Gregg has been in the business of delivering happiness, and not to kind of take away Tony Hsieh's line, but really the mission of JibJab all along was making billions people happy. And I think what we've seen over the past 10 years, especially on social media, and just seeing just a lot of hatred and dismissals and anxiety and all these just terrible things happening online. And so when Gregg was thinking about building something next, he had this sort of like infused experience from JibJab and then Storybots, and thinking like, what can I do to make social media better and kinder, and having these, face-to-face, screen-to-screen conversations. There's something that, that as evidence here, that you have video together and it kind of puts people on a better behavior, maybe you brush your hair a little bit more and you're a little bit nicer and things like that. So it was one of the things that really drew me as an investor to backing Gregg and the team that he's put together. It's another thing too, and DK, you probably have the same thing, that these experienced founders who, know what they're doing, this isn't their first rodeo, the fact that they can easily attract a lot of people that they've worked with already, that's always like a great sign too. So seeing like the whole JibJab crew and Storybots crew be like, I want to work with this guy again.
Yeah, we brought the band back together for this one. My co-founders, ran product and engineering for iOS at JibJab, and had worked on Storybots as well. So we have a long history, and we've brought in lots of other great. I always say it's like my all-star team from 20 years of building businesses, and it's just so fun, especially in a distributed world where we're building and we're in different places, to kind of have those shared values and the shared experiences of building product together.
But when did it all get started? Are we 6 months in, a year in? What does the timing look like?
Yeah,
I didn't mean to crash this party. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Katie.
Good to see you.
We'll get Brocco up here in a minute. So in May of 2019, we sold Storybots to Netflix, and just as an entrepreneur, I say it's almost like a curse. Like you get this idea and you're like, oh man, I can't stop thinking about this. Am I going to do this insanity of building a company again? Mm-hmm. But the idea was that the thing that struck me was everyone was getting more comfortable with video as a communication medium. So if you look at stories, and especially post-pandemic Zoom, but all public discussion forums were text-based. And so the high concept idea was, what if we could take Reddit and kind of overlay a TikTok-esque video-centric user experience? So threaded asynchronous video conversations organized on an interest graph. Could we create a product that created a sense of community with asynchronous video? And so that was in June of 2019, and I just let that thought eat away at me until probably August or September, and I called Mike, and I was like, "Hey, Mike, I got this idea I can't stop thinking about. You want to get together and just kind of brainstorm?" And so Mike and I started doing, Starbucks, early mornings, and, before we both had our day gigs. And before we knew it, we had built a prototype and said, wow, this feels good. Like, it's like that Island moment where you're like, okay, like this feels like something, which is just that when you're a product builder, it's that magic moment where you're just like, oh yeah, like, okay, now I'm really hooked. Now we're going deep. And so we did that towards the end of last year. We recruited our other co-founder, Gustavo, out of Facebook. He had left JibJab, gone to Facebook after it was sold, raised money in June of 2020. And then from there, we've been building. And we just launched in the App Store quietly in April of this year, quietly until Gary Vaynerchuk and then it, almost blew the wheels off. But it's been a really, really fun build. Like, it's like when you're building with friends, there's like nothing better than building with friends. And we have all this shared history, and we feel like we're building something important, which is like a format and a forum that brings humanity, brings like really brings people back into the social media equation. Like, no hiding behind 200, your snipes behind 280 text characters. You're talking face to face with someone. And the thesis was that people would be better behaved if they were, talking face to face. And it's impossible to be a bot, right? When you've got to get on video. And so that's really played out. It's like really been like a beautiful thing. We're seeing just such constructive, positive interactions between thousands of people. It's really encouraging. Now, clearly, we're not at the scale of a Twitter yet, but and more problems will certainly emerge. But we've had, I will say, well over 50,000 videos created by users in conversations, and we've had pieces of flagged content. One was about a crypto, saying something was a crypto scheme, and the other was saying something that there's misleading information about a COVID vaccination. So it just goes to show you, like, with that scale, we're seeing, really, really good behavior, and it's a really great thing.
Yeah, so meaning like the numbers are pretty small relative to the total number of videos created. That's
I mean, 2 flagged pieces of content out of 50,000. And
so kind of the idea that this video format helps you be kind of better actors and on better behavior.
Yeah, I think it's, when you're looking at somebody and you see their facial expressions, like it creates empathy, it creates a connection that's lacking. The subtlety of what you're saying isn't misconstrued. I think there are a number of factors. I think also, being mean is ugly, right? I mean, it's just like no one wants to be, it's not attractive to be like, to be a jerk. And I think, like, especially with asynchronous, people have the opportunity to record their response and just make sure, it's like there's this safety mechanism. It's like, okay, it's like, I feel good about this. I can share it. You're not in like a real-time situation. And I think that also keeps temperatures down. I think there are a number of factors driving the kind of the tone of and the tenor of conversation that we're seeing. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting.
Have there been any...
It's what people say, this feels good. This feels healthy.
Yeah.
I think people really need that right now. People need a way to connect in a safe place. In a safe place.
Totally. Have there been any early conversations that, like, what were the early interactions that you saw that kind of really struck you? Like, what were people talking about? What's been striking with people the most?
That's a great question. It's like every VC. It's like in the playbook. Not here. This is like what surprises you, right? But like thing. So I'll say, like, the first thing that really jumps out at me is like men, women, black, white, gay, straight, like people are engaging in conversations that'll go like 10 back and forths deep. And you look at these people and you go, these people would never be like sitting in a coffee shop talking to them.
Yeah.
And I think going back to that safety of, hey, I can record what I'm saying. I'm not going to say the wrong thing. I feel safe. Like I have more control over my conversation. But like the variations on people who are actually having these really important conversations is the one thing that surprised me. I thought, like, well, maybe if you see people, it'll kind of gravitate towards more tribal kind of like, I don't want to talk to the people who look like me. It's the absolute opposite. Like I've never seen any other forum where different people are talking to each other the way they are on our platform. The other thing is just how vulnerable people are willing to be and how supportive people are willing to be. So we've had people who have come on and, talked about their grief and loss, and other people coming in and sharing their own experiences, like really, really, like deep, meaningful conversations that you can like look at and go, wow, this is really impactful. Like everyone here is like better off by virtue of having had this, this conversation and this connection. I think those are like the other thing that just surprised me is how deep these conversations go. So when we built the platform, like one of the things I heard and I was a little worried about was, like someone's gonna ask a question, you're gonna get like 20 answers and like, that's it. Like there's no need for like a sophisticated UX around threading because these conversations won't go deep. Well, like we're seeing, I forget the exact number, but like threads 10 deep, meaning 10 back and forths, like, and more, like people just going deep in these kind of ping pong back and forth conversations has really been gratifying. Oh, and one more thing. People, like we built the product, so the product has no like buttons. Like it is a core of our philosophy. Like the like button is the root of all evil in my mind. Like it is the most terrible metric in the world. So we don't do view counts and we don't do likes on the platform. And people love that. Like I thought we'd be like, have to defend this. Like, no, we're going to build something different. And everyone was saying, ultimately, you're going to have to give in because likes are the lightweight, thing that drives engagement. And we're finding that it's actually not the case, that people are saying, I can be myself here. There are no tools to judge, and therefore the level of anxiety to participate is much lower. So when you on Instagram, it's your best life every moment. Like HiHo is just, me talking to you, and people have really kind of adopted that mode of engagement.
Mm-hmm. And the overall structure, you kind of relate Reddit as kind of that open hierarchical replies. Structure. Yeah. So when I'm consuming, do you always start at the root of a conversation, take me down, or do you sometimes take me to like, the really interesting reply number 3 that was kind of like the magic one from that?
Great point. I think I see Mike in the little square laughing, but like right now we just have a feed of the most recent activity because we're so new in the product. You can actually look at the conversation view, meaning you jump to the top, but like the feed on the home screen of the app is most recent replies. And the swiping mechanism, and Mike oversaw the UX development, like it's really elegant, and it's really easy to go from like 10 levels down up to the top and swipe your way around. But it's something that we're working on, which is like, okay, how do you orient the user, for a certain, for the best content? And it's the challenge, but that's also like what makes it fun,
Yeah.
Right.
We should get Mike up. I want to hear what he's thinking too.
Oh, really quickly.
Yeah.
On the Reddit front, it's very much like Reddit. So we have this concept of channels. So anyone can create an interest group channel and be the moderator of that channel. You can follow channels. It's a follower model. So you can follow people or channels, either one works. So we have we have like on the people side, Tim Ferriss is an investor, Gary Vaynerchuk, Chris Sacca, a whole host of folks. And then on the channel side, we have had channels from like Discover, all sort of WebMD. We've got all sorts of brands starting to pop up. But we're 6 weeks post launch, so it's
wow.
First inning, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm actually curious. And hi, Mike. Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
Welcome.
Good. I'm curious to hear about a little bit of the thinking behind some of these like UX decisions, like the like button, or how you think about the feed, and like what are you most kind of curious about and experimenting with in terms of design or interactions right now?
Yeah, I'll talk to the like button, and then I'll pass it to Mike to talk feed. like the like button is like a core is core. Like we need to create a low anxiety product, like something that people feel, you know, they don't have to worry about being judged. They can just be themselves. And so the absence of a like button is really has never been like a debatable thing in terms of just like anyone being able to hit a like, because it's just it's like we're monkeys now. We're just like, and then we value ourselves based on, you know, the aggregate counts of like monkey tapping. So that was never a part of like our thinking about the product. We have wrestled with the idea that if Mike replies to me, should I be able to send a lightweight reaction to him? And if so, how do we do that in a way that doesn't create either an obligation on my part or that cuts off the conversation? Because it's just easier to tap a like button, like or a thumbs up, than it is to like re-engage. And then making sure, and this is key, like making sure we don't build product before the norms and kind of the social norms and the etiquette of the platform emerges. Like I remember in Clubhouse, I was very early because Katie, I think we were like in the first 100 users. I felt bad leaving the room, right, early on. But now, like, no, the etiquette and the norms emerge, and it's okay to leave the room. And so we're making sure we don't pre-engineer like lightweight responses in conversations that could end them too quickly. We'd rather have the norm emerge where it's like, okay, like, you know, conversations end and you move on to the next one. So we're very careful about and very deliberate about how we think about reactions and what impact it could have on the product. I don't know, Mike, if you want to talk about the feed or kind of how we think about the feed or add anything to the like button discussion.
Yeah, I think, Jay, we're still super early, and so we don't want to make, you know, product decision, like too opinionated product decisions or product decisions that could sort of lead us down a path that's harder to redirect. And so I think, you know, sometimes like friction is a feature. And I think we saw, you know, with the early adoption that that sort of, there is a hurdle, right, to get someone past that point of recording a video. But then once they do, there's sort of like an unlock there because you don't have a lot of the stuff, the performative, you know, metrics that you have on other platforms. And I think, you know, when we've taken videos and mashed them up, you'd think when you're watching something that, you know, professional actors or something, because someone's speaking so naturally, because it's just a one-on-one interaction at the end of the day. You're not kind of speaking to someone, but you're kind of like, you know, half aware of like a stage and people like watching your thing. It's very much like a one-on-one interaction. So trying to keep that.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, so just trying to keep that kernel like there, you know, and not introduce things that potentially, you know, could change the psychology of creating videos.
Yeah, we always say like the product needs to feel like a communication product, like where the exhaust is all this great content, but like while you're using the product, it's got to feel more like a communication product than like a consumption product.
Right. How do you think of like within when people are in like interest-based channels or trying to find conversations they want to join, how like I guess a lot of people might wonder without a like button, like how do you get kind of the curation that allows people to find the most relevant, interesting things for them? Are there other signals that you think are higher quality or built in?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was saying, I mean, it's still early days in terms of building out sort of the algorithms and the way to recommend content to folks. I think part of the advantage of like the channels piece is that sort of users can self-select their interests. And so we still have a lot to do just in, you know, providing quicker access to the things that they've explicitly said they're interested in. And so the other piece is, you know, unlike a TikTok or something where each content is sort of like this 15-second or very short kind of thing and it's on to the next thing, you know, conversations can span, you know, days and weeks, like they can just continue on. Months. And so, yeah, so like, I mean, it's not ephemeral. So, you know, once users start participating in conversations and channels, you know, even I find myself like just keeping up with our things I've already engaged in and people that have replied to me is just that, you know, that could almost occupy a lot of my time. And so, yeah, I think that the key is just, you know, getting people into the right channels, the right interests, and then making sure that we're surfacing like the best interactions in terms of what they've explicitly, you know, already kind of said they're interested in from a channel standpoint, or just because they've replied or engaged in some way.
Yeah, the product is designed really, we can take advantage of the best of like algorithmic, programmatic recommendations. as well as that human curation piece. So like one of the things we're working on right now is the ability of moderators to pin conversations. Like who better to say what the most relevant piece of content is to the books community than the moderator of the books channel. And then on the other side, I think like the like button is like it's a really overt signal, but we have so much data, like observational data, like view through rates on videos. How does who's responding map to your follower graph and to an extended graph? So we have like almost too much data. It's a little scary to think about, okay, where's the real kind of bang for the buck as we start to move towards more algorithmic, but like the channel moderation, we're really excited about, like that blend of human and machine programming.
And does the core consumption experience, will it take, like you mentioned, sort of a conversation that could happen over the course of several months? Is there an easy way to just say, give me the best stuff and I want to kind of watch that several month thing play out over the course of 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Or is it I'm swiping and choosing each one, or how does that part work?
There's no linear option where it'll navigate. Now that may be something that we do in the future. We do have some partners, and we're basically doing compilations, like really fun compilations to watch. But so, for example, Katie and I had a conversation. Like I posted a video that was like, my girlfriend keeps putting the butter in the fridge. Like, I can't put the butter on my kids' waffles when it's coming out of the fridge. Like, so I put it in the counter, she puts it on the fridge, and back and forth. That conversation has run since October. Like, it keeps bubbling up. Like, which is hilarious because you on the one hand you have these really deep conversations about dealing with grief. And on the flip side, you have like, a couple arguing about whether butter goes in the fridge or on the counter. So,
do you have like team counter?
What's that?
Do you have like team counter and team fridge chiming in?
Yeah, exactly. But when you're experiencing it, the great thing is the content that doesn't have to be topical. Like if you come in the app today, that conversation starts in October, but unless you like look at the little indicator of when it started, like it can feel as fresh today as it did back then. And that's like a really exciting part of the like content library that we're building.
Right.
Yeah.
What is kind of the new user experience look like when you come in? Are you given a set of channels that you can then kind of navigate around and start to find your way to the stuff that's right for you?
I'll let Mike. Why don't you talk through that? Because there's some decisions about where do we put the reg gate. There's all kinds of decisions that we've made, and we're rethinking. Do you do text versus the Apple off? Like, Mike, why don't you take that one?
Yeah. We have screen share. I'm not sure. I know it's an app, so it might not work with computer screen share. But if you want to show us anything, or even just like on your phone, you can.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just say that when we initial build up the onboarding, like we hadn't even launched channels yet. So we're in the process of integrating channels into that onboarding experience. Right now it's just people, but we basically don't require authentication, account creation to get into the app, consume content. Just when you want to follow someone or post a video is when you're asked to register. So kind of following a little bit the Reddit model in terms of exposing things for consumption, but requiring an account to participate. So that's the current model, and certainly, like Greg said, we'll probably play with, different options, different things. Certainly, it's just phone number authentication right now, but we're thinking through, potentially email or some other things, both to give people more options to log in, as well as for re-engagement, whether it's email or things like that. So we're definitely exploring a lot of things in that area for sure.
Mm-hmm. And how do you sort of go about prioritizing how do the mechanics of team organization and idea prioritization and discussion go? Do you have sort of a figured out model, or do you kind of you guys have worked together long enough, you kind of just have good instincts for how you want to do this?
Yeah, it's probably just a combination of everything. Certainly we had sort of a plan lined up, and things happen. We got a flood of users from the Gary Vee thing, so maybe we rethink some of the priorities and shift things around. And certainly we've got folks talking to big partners who are giving feedback about things they would want or need potentially to get involved. So just taking in the feedback and, kind of iterating as we go. It's definitely, we don't have a roadmap for 3 to 5 months necessarily like solidified. It's just, we have like a sort of North Star place we're going, but figuring, letting the details play out as we go.
Yeah, I think like the key in any product building is agility. Like every morning you need to wake up and go, is this the right stuff? And just wipe your board clean. And most times, if you're good and you're thoughtful, you're close to the bullseye. But like Mike mentioned, we had Gary Vaynerchuk come in, and now it's like overnight, we had a 3-month roadmap where we're like, we're going to need to figure out how to get people to use this thing. And then Gary brought in this flood of users, and it's like, oh my God, they're actually using it. Instead of focusing on this part of the funnel, like, let's figure out how to get that person who took the leap and made their first video to get into the bucket of 7% of users have made over 100 videos like on the app. Wow. And we're only out there for 4 or 5 weeks. So, so I think I think for us, and we're in the process now of like doing a deep dive on instrumenting the product, because we thought like instincts would be necessary to drive for the next few months at least. And now we wound up with like a statistically significant amount of traffic and engagement. So we're like, okay, shoot, we're under instrumented. So now we got to spend a cycle instrumenting and
put problems though, right?
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, but it's, and then I think where we're going is what part of this user journey or do we hope this feature, do we want to move the needle on, and what features support that? And then coming back and measuring it and kind of putting in place like an iterative, like hypothesis, dev, release, evaluate, kind of cycle, which is the holy grail, I guess, of digital product building.
Yeah, totally. Well, I know we only had 45 minutes scheduled, so I don't want to overrun your time. If you've got something else you're running off to, I want to be sensitive to the timing. So I wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, I have a kid pickup that was unanticipated.
Yeah, we don't want to keep you from that.
A kid stranded on the side of the road.
You're like, here's my video. I promise I had something I was doing. But we do want to thank you for sharing this story. I think, I've been a JibJab user for so long, and I've known the content. I love the story of how the content and the opportunities that you found during a certain era of the internet are now kind of maybe not as obvious. And now you have let's say, increased the ambition of, can you be the next platform for the next creators of content? It has a really nice kind of, it's not, it kind of rhymes in a way that's really nice. So
thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we're so excited. And I love that you honed in on that. That is the opportunity now. It's like, how do you instead of thinking about formats that can ride on a platform, can we create a format and a product experience that actually builds a platform, like something with network effects? And we've always been viral. We've never had network effects in our businesses that Mike and I have built. And so this one, we're like, there's a need for an asynchronous, public video platform, and we can be that.
Yep. Super cool. Well, thanks for sharing your stories, and thanks for spending the time with us, both Gregg and Mike. Really appreciate it.
Really fun.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.